Hey everybody, and welcome to the Stitching Between Pages podcast. This is episode 12. I'm Robin, and today is Sunday, the 6th of September. As you can tell, I am no longer in the District of Columbia area. I'm also not in an apartment yet. So I'm podcasting from my parents' house today. This is, in fact, my old bedroom, which is a little strange, but here we are. So anyways, I actually don't have a whole lot to show you this week, or this episode, so I've come up with a few other things that I'm going to talk about, so hopefully there's at least something, you'll find something here that's worth sticking around for. So if you're a new viewer, thanks for checking it out. If you're coming back, thanks for coming back again. You can find me on Ravelry as halfpast92, and on Twitter and Instagram as Medievalisting. We have a Ravelry group, which I forgot to mention last time. It's Stitching Between Pages podcast. And thanks to everybody who's joined and commented, and it's really great to chat with you guys. I'd like to get it more active, but it's not, I just don't have the time at the moment. So if anybody has any suggestions for making a Ravelry group more active, that would be really much appreciated. I also have a blog for the podcast where I post all of the show notes. And somebody recently commented, I think it was on YouTube, that they really appreciated how detailed my show notes are. So thanks for that comment. And it's good to know that people are finding those useful. So you can find show notes for this and all previous episodes at stitchingbetweenpages.blogspot.com. I think so. The link will be down there. I'm pretty sure it's Blogspot. So anyways, before I talk about knitting, I wanted to say thank you so much to all of you who've reached out to me, whether in the comments on YouTube or on the Ravelry group or via Ravelry message. I've just been overwhelmed by the kind and congratulatory words that everybody's had. If you didn't watch the last episode, I announced that I've been accepted to a PhD program in the Chicago area for medieval history, which is my thing, and it's really kind of a dream come true for me to have this opportunity. Classes have not begun yet, but they begin soon. So I'm so excited to get started, and it means so much to have heard from all of you guys, and I'm just overwhelmed. I really don't think I have any other words for it. So thank you all. It's always wonderful to talk to you all, but I was just overwhelmed by everybody's kindness. It means a lot. So thank you all. Today I am drinking, and they just come in a little tin, and I didn't bring the tin up. But maybe you can see. It's Tazo Gingerly Jasmine, and it is delicious. I hunted at like 3 or 4 different grocery stores before I finally found it. I first had it at a friend's house, and then I wanted some of my own, and it took me a while to find it. But it's I think it's a green tea base, but it doesn't taste like green tea. I'm not the biggest green tea, and it has a little bit of caffeine, but not very much. It tastes mostly like ginger with a little bit of jasmine, sort of florally note. It's really pleasant. And the mug is the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway. Hi, Dad. I think my dad usually watches or has them on in the background and listens. And this is one of his many train-related mugs. There's a whole collection in my parents' house. The Legacy collection, I think. Old logos and old railroads that are now part of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. Dad, if I'm wrong, let me know. So anyways, a nice big mug of tea because I was thirsty and didn't want to get dry throat while I was podcasting. So I do actually have a finished object, and I'm filming this on Sunday, kind of late in the afternoon, so my apologies for the later upload time than usual. By the time I get this up, it'll probably be after dinner. But part of the reason I put it off was because things have just the title of last episode was, in which things are in an uproar. Things continue to be in an uproar. And I'm looking forward to a couple months from now when things are, I'm going to assume still busy, but hopefully feel a little bit more settled. But I wanted to podcast, and so I did. And the good thing is that in putting it off, I have a finished object. I finished my blue tit socks, and I've not woven in the ends yet. So I did tuck them all inside, so you can't tell that I haven't woven in the ends yet, but I still have to do that. But I decided to share them as a finished object anyways. So this is knit out of West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply in the blue tit colorway, which is now, I think, absolutely famous in the knitting podcast world thanks to the Bakery Bears. And it is wonderful, wonderful yarn to work with. And I'm just really excited to wear these socks. I did, as I think I've said every time I've shown these, contrast color, slip stitch, heel flap, and gusset. And I used some Cascade Heritage sock yarn for the heel, as I have with every single contrast color heel that I have done. And then I always use the toe from the Hermione's Everyday Socks. I think it makes a really nice toe. And I am pleased to say that I now have the entire heel flap and gusset memorized. The number of stitches for the short rows and the number of stitches that you pick up and the bind off, and I have the toe memorized. So I did these socks entirely without looking at a pattern, and that sort of makes me feel like a real sock knitter. But as I think I said also, I think I'm going to take a break from contrast color heel flaps and do something different. So these are pretty much just my standard 64 stitch plain vanilla sock. I did 15 rows of 2x2 rib. I think 15 rows is about the maximum that I can do before I'm like, all right, time to be done with the ribbing. So, and I also wanted to thank Kay from Bakery Bears. She got in touch and told me that this is in fact machine washable yarn. So, as you can see, I have plenty left because I have small feet. I wear a US women's 6.5 shoe. So, not very big feet, and I don't like my socks to be super, super tall. So I tend to use a little bit more than 50 grams when I make my own socks. So I am going to make a pair of socks with a shorter cuff, obviously, and I might do them toe up so that I can judge better exactly how long I can get away with making the cuff. So I might do the Rose City rollers, but I might make them a little bit deeper before doing the heel. But I like the rolled cuff, and I think my friend will like that too. But she really admired this yarn, but is not a hand knitter, so I didn't want to give her something that was hand wash only and clearly has to be washed frequently. A hat, you can get away with washing that once a season or twice a season. Mittens, I don't wash super frequently. Scarves, I hardly ever, when they start really looking like they need it, then I'll give them a wash. But it's, socks, you have to wash them pretty much every time you wear them or every other time you wear them or whatever. So I didn't want to give her something that was hand wash only. And also thank you to everybody who's chimed in and says that they do knit socks for non-knitting friends. So this will have a use. First I'm going to crochet a little square for my blanket, but I've not done that yet. So that is my only finished object, and as soon as I finish those, we've all seen this bag. I finally cast on my rainbow socks, which is so exciting. I decided to wait because I wanted to use, and I'm mid needle. That's lovely. Well done, Robin. I decided that I wanted to use my Hiya Sharps DPNs, which I've decided I like better than the Xiaogu, I think it's their premium stainless steel, which is the other set of sock DPNs that I have, or DPNs I have that I use for socks. And I knit my socks pretty much always on a US 1, which is a 2.25 millimeter. And I've done both Magic Loop, but I'm currently on the DPN train. So this is yarn from the lovely, lovely Jeanette, who is Bookish Stitcher, has the Bookish Stitcher podcast. And yeah, so I'm still working on the ribbing. I decided to do a 1x1 twisted rib, which takes a little bit longer, but I really love how it looks. and I really want these to be the most fabulous socks that they can be. So as you can see, I've just started, and here is the yarn, and I completely forget what it is and failed to look it up before I started the podcast. So I will put it in the, I showed it off when I first got it, so I will put what yarn it is in the show notes. But Jeanette wound it for me. I did not wind it into a ball. She did that, and you know, did it by the stripes, which is so lovely looking. I am so excited about these socks. So in thinking ahead, I think I'm going to do a Fish Lips Kiss heel on these because I have not done that in a while. And I also think that I am not going to bother cutting the yarn. I don't want to waste any of this yarn because it is so pretty. And they're rainbow socks, so I feel like they're allowed to be crazy. And, you know, and then I'm not going to, when I start the second sock, I'm just going to start. I am not going to I'm not going to make any attempt to have them match because they're rainbows. So they're fun anyways. So that is that. That is my one new cast on. Everything else that I have to show you guys, knitting wise, you have already seen. I did put a very, very small dent in my Strand Hill cardigan. It's designed by Kia Kuhn. I actually remembered to look at the pattern before I started podcasting. I've always listed it on the show notes, but I don't think I've ever said the designer's name. It's a design which you can purchase from Knit Picks, and I'm using Knit Picks Stroll Fingering in the Dogwood Heather colorway, which is the same colorway that was used to knit the sample pattern. So I'm still working on the yoke. I have not separated the sleeves yet, and I don't remember. I just completely lost my train of thought. I'm going to have a sip of tea now. So I finished the, let's see, I think you do, let's see, here's it, 4 repeats for the size that I'm doing, which I've highlighted it. I don't remember if it's the smallest size or the next smallest size. I dithered back and forth for a while which size to do, and I don't remember which I ultimately decided on. But I've done however many repeats of the lace. This is the lace on the back. And I have done exactly 1 row of lace on the 2 front panels. So you can see I've put stitch markers, and you can see they're starting to be signs of lace. And then here it is on the other side. So you do 1 more, it's a 13, 14, 12, 14 row lace repeat. You do 1 with the lace on the front and the back. And then you divide the sleeves and carry on knitting the body in one piece. And I'm really anxious to get to that point because I'm kind of tired of knitting. It's a lot of stitches, and I'm kind of tired of including all the sleeve stitches in there. And I think I will enjoy it much more when I'm just doing rows of lace and then purling and not having to increase and whatnot. So definitely still working on this. Very eager to have the finished product, and especially eager because I'm only about halfway through. Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast and Wool and Vine Yarns, I'm only about halfway through her latest episode, but she has announced a featherweight knit along. And if you'll remember, at the same time that I bought this yarn, I bought some purple lace weight to knit a lace weight featherweight cardigan, which is a design that I have loved and wanted to knit for a little while. And so I think she said the official start date is the 21st of September, or the 22nd. It's the first day of fall to the first day of winter. I think it's the 21st of September to the 22nd of December this year. And I don't know if I'll be able to knit the entire cardigan because that is exactly when I will be mid first semester as a PhD student. So I don't know if I'll be able to finish it, but I would like to start it. It would be a good excuse to get me going, at least. So, and several of you have commented that I will probably need knitting to keep me sane, and you're probably right. So, yeah. So anyways, it's starting to look like an adult-sized garment, so that's kind of exciting. I am knitting this on Xiaogu Signature Premium, because signatures are totally different. They're the super expensive fancy needles that I don't own any of. And I'm curious about them, but I'm not curious enough to spend that much money. They're really expensive. And I know lots of people say they're worth it, but then there's a group that say that they're not actually worth it. And I would really hate to spend that much money and find that I am one of those people who does not think they're worth it. So I'm continuing to use my sort of normal price needles. But these are the Xiaogu Premium Stainless Steel US 8, which is a 5mm. And I'm not sure how I feel about this bend here, but they're doing the job. And I like the cables are really nice. They're kind of flexible and they don't kink up very much, which is always good. So that is that. I didn't even finish. I was hoping that I would have finished at least the first skein, but I have a little bit left. It is getting too big. It's kind of squished in my little bag that I have it in, but this is a bag that I made. Just a simple little box bag. And I remembered where I won my little cherry zipper pull from. If anybody is in the DC area or will be in the DC area in September, I forget this month, but it's every year, and I forget exactly which weekend it is, but there is a fabulous craft festival called Crafty Bastards, run by the Washington City paper. And it used to be located in the Adams Morgan neighborhood, but they've moved and they're now in Noma in Northeast DC at Union Market. It's a really cool space, Union Market, and then all the craft vendors are outside. But there's all sorts. Kismet Fiber Works, Kismet Fiber Arts was there last year, and I have a couple of skeins from them that I'm waiting for the exact right shawl pattern to come along. Really beautiful blue and a sort of goldy brown that I think will make a really nice shawl together, but I just need the right two-color shawl, and it has not come along yet. But there's all sorts of, people who sew things and people who paint, and it really is like there's something for everybody there. So if you're ever in DC in September, I definitely encourage you to check it out. There's a nominal fee to get into the festival. I think it's like $5 or $10 if you buy it ahead, and a few more dollars if you pay at the door. And it's a Saturday and Sunday. And there are some vendors who are there both days. There are some vendors who are only there Saturday, and there are some vendors who are only there Sunday. So if you're interested in going, I definitely encourage you to check out the website and see which vendors will be there on which days. But I'm sad I'm missing it this year, obviously. And so if any of you are ever in the area, that's where I won my cherry zipper pull. But it's really fun, and if I do have any viewers in the area who have not heard of it or have not been, I wanted to mention it in case anybody had the opportunity to go. It's not strictly knitting at all. In fact, I think Kismet Fiber Arts was the only yarn. There was like one art yarn vendor who spins like those weird. I don't want to say they're weird, because I'm sure that there's a use for them that I'm just not aware of as a, sort of accessory and garment knitter. But those like core spun art yarns that have like stuff spun into them that's not yarn. If that makes any sense at all. There was a vendor who was selling that yarn. But I think those were the only two sort of hand knitting related or yarn related. There were people selling like crocheted things and possibly knitted things, but there was a lot of art, and there's always some clothing and sort of accessories. There's always lots of jewelry. I've gotten some really fun earrings there, some sort of like vintagey button-shaped earrings that are made out of 1940s flour sacks. Those are kind of fun. Yeah, it's really cool is what I'm trying to say. And the other thing that I've put a lot of work into this, actually, over the past couple of weeks. This is all the yarn I have left. now. So this is my Loop Studio DK weight from Loop in Philadelphia, and I know at least one of you, hi Sue-Ann, bought the same yarn in the same color, and I'm so excited to see your Campside shawl as it comes together. I have a weird feeling that I said canopy shawl. This is definitely the Campside shawl by Alicia Plummer. And so I'm on the final, whoa, see, it's so much bigger now than it was last time. Showing it off really got me to, and having it as sort of the one of the few projects that I had on hand. So I'm on the last set of eyelets, as you can probably tell, where they're really close together before starting the rib that is the border. So I'm thinking I might run out of yarn, so I will just, I'm going to finish up this eyelets and do as many as it says. And then I'll just knit ribbing until I run out of yarn. Or if it looks like I'm getting close, I might go get some like off-white DK weight yarn and do the rib. I think that would be really pretty. So we'll see. Once I get to the end of the last eyelet, it's chart 7 and 8 on the last eyelet section, then I will make my decision. But as you can see, I hadn't even started the second skein yet. So I've knit at least this much, but I think more. So yeah, it's getting big. The rows are starting to get a little long, but that's okay. I am really enjoying it. Again, I think taking a break from it was a good decision because it's starting to get big and warm and cozy. When I got back to the Chicago area, we had about a week. That was the very first week that felt like a preview of fall. It was highs in the 70s. And then it went back up to highs in the high 80s. So I was back to feeling like summer again. Speaking of summer, happy Labor Day weekend to everybody in the U.S. It is the last official week of summer. Official. Fall doesn't start until mid-September. I'm ready for fall. I've been ready for fall for months. But, you know, white pants. Say goodbye to your white pants. I don't own any white pants because I have a terrible tendency, if I'm wearing something white, there is food spilled on it. I am perfectly capable of eating food until I wear white. And then bad things happen with pasta sauce and other sauces and salad dressing, and it's a bad situation. So I just don't wear very much white. I hope you are all doing something fun and not working too much / at all. So it's Labor Day weekend, and that is exactly what it is for. So that is all of my knitting. I do have one other crafty work in progress to share with you, and I'm actually going to, it's embroidery. And I'm going to take it out of its little hoop so that I can show it to you. It is, oh hang on, we have a tangle between the hoop and the thread that I am sewing with. Okay, it is a little bicycle, and I apologize for all of the creases. But there we go. I'm getting close to finishing, and it's not a difficult embroidery project at all. So far it is entirely backstitching except for the little, what are they called? This thing where you can put stuff and like put a basket. It has a name, and I am totally drawing a blank on it. But that is chain stitch. And then the flower basket, I'm thinking I might do the basket in split stitch because I think that might sort of look like, you know, a woven wicker basket. I don't think I'm going to fill in the whole thing, but I'll do, you know, a few lines too. And then I will do probably some lazy daisies for the leaves and French knots for the flowers. But I think the pattern recommends doing French knots for the flowers. So I'm doing it in sort of, I don't have the floss to tell you what colors I used, but I'm using sort of a turquoise blue for the bike and a dark gray for the wheels and seat and pedal, and the handlebars will be dark gray. I think the basket will be dark gray, and then I'm going to do sort of a sage green and a purple for the flowers. So the pattern is by I Heart Stitch Art on Etsy. Sarah is her name. And Sarah Milligan. And she sells kits as well as patterns, but I just bought the pattern and I'm embroidering it on some, I think it's like linen look. It's, 50% linen and 50% some sort of nylon or, acrylic. Talking in yarn terms, polyester, is that the appropriate fabric term? It's not 100% linen. Oh goodness, I just flipped the tag of my tea bag into my tea. But here is her stitched up example of the finished product. And as you can see, I am following quite closely her recommendations. And then there's her I Heart Stitch Art, and it's she's I Heart Stitch Art on Etsy. If you are interested, she has some cute insects, like big insects. I think there's a butterfly and a bee. I really want to do the bee. The bicycle. I'm trying to remember what else she has. I think she has more that are available as kits than she does that are available as, so you get the fabric and all the thread, as well as the pattern. But I wanted some instant download, and then I went to Joann Fabrics and got, I actually got a yard of the linen fabric, so I have plenty to do, and I think I might do some of these as Christmas presents, because they're super cute, and they're a good size. They fit in an 8 or 10 inch frame, and the pattern includes a bicycle that faces this way as well as a bicycle that faces that way, so it's just reversed. So that is that, my other crafty pursuit. The other crafty pursuit that I've been working on this week, I have a short little, it's a 2-shelf bookshelf, that for years there's a window right here, and for years it's been sitting underneath that window full of my books. But I sanded it with a palm sander, so I used a power tool, which was very exciting. So I sanded it, primed it, and I think I finished painting it. I put 3 coats on. I think it's sufficiently white, but most of my furniture is white, and so I wanted it to match. And I'm going to fill it with books, but I'm going to put my TV on it in my new apartment. I don't watch TV very often. I didn't have cable at my previous apartment. I mostly watch Netflix, but I might get a Chromecast, and then I could watch podcasts on the big screen. How exciting. It's not that big of a screen. But I thought rather than, because I did briefly think about buying sort of a dedicated TV stand. I spent a lot of time at IKEA over the past week as well. And I love IKEA. I really like IKEA. But I did briefly think about buying a dedicated TV stand, and then I thought, that's silly. I have something that would work perfectly and would also work as a bookshelf, because that's what it's a bookshelf. And it was a very easy project to finish it. So I will, I posted a picture on Instagram of the sanding process, and I will post a picture probably once it has books in it, once it is a real finished object. So that is that. I have, I guess, sort of 2 acquisitions, just on one of my trips to Joann Fabric I think I've been 3 times over the past 2 weeks. I got some Patton's Croix socks. This is the rag stripes, or rag shades. That's RAGG, but it's kind of gray and colors. And I really like this one. I've seen this shade knitted up into socks, and I think it looks really nice. I've knit 1 pair of socks out of Patton's Croix. And so I got obviously 2 skeins, because they're 50 gram skeins. So I'm going to knit more socks. And I went to the bookstore, and this is a book I've wanted for a while, The Knowledgeable Knitter by Margaret Radcliffe. And it's all about knitting sweaters, mostly about knitting sweaters, but I think it's very useful for all sorts of other things. She talks a lot about why we do the things that we do when we knit sweaters, and why patterns might recommend one thing or why people might switch and do another technique. So she has things like different options for buttonholes. She provides the most thorough explanation for why and how you should swatch that I have ever read. And I'm actually really I want this book for sweater knitting, but I also want it for just to expand sort of, I know a lot of techniques, but I want to know more about why different techniques work in some situations better than other techniques, for example. Because, and I think I've mentioned this before, I have a bunch of ideas for designs, but I don't feel confident enough that I have the ability to turn it into something that I would wear and that other people would wear, or use. Designing garments is still way past my knowledge level. I haven't knit enough garments. The cardigan that I'm knitting is my first top-down garment. And I think really the only modifications that I've made to garments that I've knit have been things like the length of the garment, or when I knit the IDES cardigan, which is that big cabled, I didn't show it, I knit it well before I started the podcast, like over a year before I started the podcast. But I knit that all in one piece instead of in pieces and seaming it, because I am not very good at seaming things. And so I'm actually looking at a page in The Knowledgeable Knitter about different seam techniques and bad seams and good seams and how to plan for seams and all sorts of stuff. So I'm really excited. Look, this is like different cast-ons and what they look like when they're under tension versus when they're, these are different stretchy cast-ons, and just all sorts of different ways to cast on, and why and when you should use the ones that you use. So I think this book will be very, very useful for a bunch of different reasons, and I'm really excited about it. I started reading it, and I'm not reading every word, but I am looking at every page. Shaped swatches. I have never in my life made a shaped swatch. When I swatch for sweaters, I'm doing good if I make a rectangular swatch for something that's knit flat and a swatch in the round if it's knit in the round. And in fact, for my Bonnie tank top, I swatched flat and then knit in the round, and I have been informed that that is not a good plan. It worked out fine, but I think I will get a lot of good stuff out of that, and I think that, you know, you can always get better at things, and I think this book will be very useful for doing so. So those are my acquisitions for the week. And while we are on the subject of books, I'm reading Doorstop of a novel, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, which has been out for over 10 years, and so I'm sure most of you have heard of it, and many of you have probably read it and are wondering what on earth took me so long to get to the party. In the last episode, I mentioned, or I was reading The Golem and the Jinni, which was fabulous. I highly encourage you, if you are even remotely interested in that sort of novel, whether you're interested in turn of the century New York City, or you're interested in the immigrants' experience of the U.S. Around the turn of the century, or you're interested in fantasy novels, or Jewish culture, or Syrian culture, or I don't even know, good novels, I really recommend, because I think it would really appeal to all sorts of different reading tastes. It's very well written. I know a lot of people, I'm sort of two minds of what makes good writing. And, you know, sometimes I want to read books where the author has clearly thought about every word and sort of revels in how language sounds and how language works. But other times I'm really interested in just a good story. And I want the writing to take a backseat. So I'm not getting distracted when, you know, I'm trying to think of a good example. Oh, people tell you not to use said when you're writing dialogue. And I am not a writer of fiction. I took a creative writing class in college, and that's the short story that I wrote for that class was the first short story I'd written since probably middle school or like freshman year of high school. And I've tried, and I have, you know, ideas for stories, but that's not a creative hobby that I have other creative hobbies that mean more to me at the moment. So, you know, maybe writing stories is something I will return to one day for myself, but it's not something I do. But anyways, there's a lot of, you know, talk about, I have friends who are creative writers, and so they talk about, you know, using said versus using a synonym for said, you know, a more evocative synonym. You know, he yelled, or he whatever, whispered or expounded. But sometimes it's just your eyes sort of skip over he said, and it provides a marker, but it doesn't interrupt the flow of the dialogue and of the story. Sometimes that's what I really want to read. And I think The Golem and the Jinni does a really remarkable job of being a little bit of both. In terms of the way she uses language. And so anyways, in case you can't tell, I loved it so much. It was such a wonderful novel that I could just get lost in, and the supporting characters are amazing, and the main characters are amazing, and the only problem I had with it was that I thought the ending was a little rushed. But if that's the only thing that really stood out to me as a complaint about the book, that's hardly a complaint. And in the back of the book, the author, Helene Wecker, I don't know which way she goes on the accents on her E's, because there were no accents on her E's. She recommended several novels that had sort of encouraged her or inspired her in her writing journey. And one of them was Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. So this was like everybody's best book of 2004. And long books I'm not afraid of long books. I just read The Goldfinch. So you all know that I am not afraid of long books. And I've read I think within the past week. Yes, within the past week. And I've not read every day or huge quantities every day. So, but when I do sit down, I tend to read 40 or 50 pages at least. So if any of you don't know, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is set in the early 19th century in England, in kind of an alternate, they're in the midst of the Napoleonic Wars, and it's set in kind of an alternate. Magic has always been a thing, and so, but people believe that actual practical magic, the actual spells, instead of just theoretical magic, talking about it or writing about the history of magic, has disappeared until Mr. Norrell arrives on the scene and performs an act of magic. And then Jonathan Strange comes along and so he has just become Mr. Norrell's student. 278 pages into the novel. And so I do believe that they start out on the same side and end up not at all on the same side. But, everybody said, well, I'll read you on the back. USA Today said, "What kind of magic can make an 800-page novel seem too short? Whatever it is, debut author Susanna Clarke is possessed by it." It's actually 846 pages long, USA Today, or my copy is anyways. I think it's been made into a TV series as well, and I don't know anything about that. But suffice it to say that I'm hoping I can finish it before I start my program, because once that starts, I will not have a whole lot of time for the reading of hefty novels, any novels, especially hefty novels. So I'm hoping that I can finish it, because I'm really enjoying it. And it's one of those, I'm always like, why didn't I pick this up sooner? What on earth took me 10 years to pick this novel up? but I'm enjoying it now, and that's what matters. And, you know, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much 10 years ago. I mean, okay, let's see here. I would not have, I was 13 years old 10 years ago. I just told you all how old I am. Well, it's a little more than 10 years. 11 years. So I was, well, whatever. I think I was too young when it came out to read it. And then, I don't know. So, I'm reading it now, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm going to guess that others of you have also read it. So I will let you know what I think. I might still be reading it in 2 weeks next time I podcast. So those are my books, and that is the end of my knitting. And several of you suggested that since I mentioned last time that I will be starting this PhD program and will no longer have a whole lot of time for reading novels for fun. And if it's anything, you know, even in undergrad, I did so much reading that I just didn't want to. If I had time to do something for fun, I did not want to spend it reading more. Because I did, as a historian, you do so much reading. But some of you suggested that you would be really interested in hearing things about medieval history and medieval women in particular, which is, as I said, that's my scholarly interest. So I'm not going to do anything today because I forgot to bring up the book that I was going to talk about. But that is an idea that I am definitely taking into consideration, and you all can definitely expect to hear about medieval women and things medieval more generally. So if any of you, actually, here's an idea relating to my question back at the beginning. What, you know, if anybody has any suggestions for making the Ravelry forum more active, I am going to create a thread for questions. So if you have questions about me or knitting or medieval women or medieval history or anything, I can't promise to be an expert on any of these subjects. Certainly not knitting. There are many far more talented knitters out there than I, and there are far many more talented medieval historians. I know a little bit, but and I'm always happy to research, and I will soon have access to a good university library and all of the good online databases. JSTOR again. So that's really exciting. So I will post a thread on the forum, and if you have any questions, really about anything, I mean, obviously I reserve the right not to answer questions if I don't want to, but, you know, questions about knitting or about history, or ask away. I will come up with a fun name for it and set that up. So expect more things about history in the podcast. So since I have a little bit of time before, you know, usually my episodes are between 50 minutes and an hour long. I have a little bit of time, and I have a little plan. I'm going to show you what is in my notions pouch, because I, like many knitters, really love notions and tools. And I obviously have my favorites, and I know everybody else out there has their own favorites. But I think it's always fun to see what people use besides, you know, I talk about my knitting needles and my yarn every week. But, of course, those aren't the only tools that we use. So this, I think I showed this off in like my second or third episode. It's just a little pouch, and I'm sure it's intended to be some sort of makeup pouch or little clutch thing. I don't know. I don't wear makeup, so not the appropriate person to ask about those things. Not for any grand reason. I have no talent for makeup and have decided it's not fun, so I don't bother anymore. This I showed off. It was a gift from my best friend. It's by Mabel and Bird, who I believe is on Etsy. And I know I posted a link in the show notes, and I will do so again. But it has this cute sort of cloud pattern, or waves, I guess, depending on which you see, you know, which color you see is the predominant color. If you look at the gray as the predominant, it looks like a cloud. If you look at the off-white, it looks like waves. And then inside, it has little triangles, and it has a pink zipper. So I'm going to dump it out, and there's going to be noise. Okay, I use these lovely little crane scissors because they're both cute and remarkably practical. They're very sharp. I only use them to cut yarn and thread. That's all they've ever been used for. And, you know, so here's his little eye, and these are his wings and his legs, and there's his body, and his beak is the blade. But I got these at a yarn shop in Oxford when I was studying abroad. The yarn store, it's a yarn and fabric store. They are on Blue Boar Street. I can picture them. They have a blue outside, cute little shop. And I can't think of what they're called. I will post information about the shop where I bought these, but you can get these scissors all kinds of different places. I think they are relatively recognizable, but they're so cute. So those are my go-to scissors. And I have also in my Notions bag a little Herdy tape measure, which has inches on one side and centimeters on the other side, which is very handy. In the back, I used to have a little cat tape measure, but I lost it. It was really sad. It was really the case of the tape measure had little ears. It was blue and it had a little cat face on it. But Herdy is a UK brand. I don't think I got this guy in the UK. I think I got him at the local yarn store in the town where I am now, where I grew up. I think that's where I got him. I don't think I got it in the UK, but Herdy is a UK brand that I believe does a lot to promote wool and sheep. So they have, this is their logo, and you can get all sorts of things with the logo on. So that is my current go-to tape measure. This thing was given to me. It is a John James Pebble. It was given to me in, I think, the very first swap I ever participated in. And oh gosh, I just threw it at myself. I don't remember who I swapped with, but if they happen to watch and they remember who they are, thank you so much, because this is like a gold thing. I treasure this so much. I constantly lost yarn needles. Constantly. It was a black hole in my life that just sucked in yarn needles. And now, because I have this little handy case that has, I haven't used the fattest one, but I've used this one and this one. Now that I have this, I can always, because it's big, I can find it. And I know where it is, and I always know that inside are my yarn needles. It's amazing. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I might sound like I'm kidding, but I'm really not. I love this so much. It is so useful. Also in my Notions pouch, I have a bunch of stitch markers. I really love these. As you can tell, I'm using like all of the orange ones at the moment. These are I think they're just the Clover brand plastic safety pin style stitch markers, which I love because you can either use them as stitch markers on your needle, or you can clip them to your fabric to keep track of where you are. Your knitted fabric, that is, not actual fabric. So I have those. I have, let's see here. Usually there are other, I guess I put it in here because I was in the car when I started my stripey socks, but I just have another bag of miscellaneous stitch markers. I think the blue plastic ones are just the Clover. The yellow ones, which are kind of like a marbly pattern, and I have some green ones that are these are made to go around like 0 to 5, and then the bigger ones go around bigger needles, but the bigger ones are green. And these were given to me in the same swap as the Pebble needles, or needle holder thing. And I love these. These are really fun. And then the ones with the little orange beads are from Danny of Little Bobbins. I'd really like to get some more fun stitch markers, because fun notions are fun. So if anybody has any favorites, let me know. I also have these are my other go-to sock DPNs. These are the Chiaogu US ones, but they just fit nicely in there, and I feel like I'm using sock knitting DPNs the most out of many of my needles, so I have a set handy. I have my crochet hook. This is the one that I use for my crochet blanket. It is a Susan Bates E4 3.5 millimeter crochet hook, but it's also handy because it's a good size for fixing knitting mistakes and things like that. So this is the one that I keep. I have a few other sizes of crochet hook. And then I have my embroidery needles, just because they fit conveniently in there. So this is where they're currently living. But they're just Clover Gold Eye embroidery needles in various sizes. Great needles, actually. I'm using one to make my bicycle, and I'm really pleased with them. So, not that I have a whole lot to compare it to, but they're super sharp and easy to thread. And I think that's about all I have for criteria of needles, embroidery needles. So those are the notions. Those are my most used notions. And so I thought I would take a little bit of time and share them. All of my stuff, and I obviously successfully left the DC area. I actually, oh goodness, having a scarf issue here. This is my Reina shawl, by the way, in case anybody was curious or did not see last week's episode when I showed it as a finished object. I actually drove the moving truck for a little bit. It was a Penske, whatever their smallest size that you can drive one way. They have like the really small ones, but those are only for local moving. And then they have the size that you can pick up in one place and return far away. You don't have to return it where you picked it up. So I think a truck, the box was 12 feet long, but the whole truck was 19 feet long. And I drove it on the highway successfully. No casualties. I don't think my wine glasses even broke, which is really exciting. I was a little worried about them, but they seem to have, the two that I looked at survived. And let's see here, what else? That's about it. Moving is stressful, and I'm ready to be done with moving. I've been not knitting as much as I wanted to, which is a little sad and frustrating, but that's how it goes. Life gets in the way sometimes, and it's been really nice to sit down and chat with you guys anyways. I hope this hasn't seemed too disjointed of an episode. I feel like I say that every week, and I feel like then I watch myself back and I'm like, that wasn't as disjointed as I thought it was. I always watch myself back to make my show notes, because I don't usually write out, I occasionally do, but I don't usually write out comprehensive show notes. No museums in the past couple of weeks. I think that's about it. I think that's all I have. So thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. It's always really nice to sit down and chat with you guys, and I hope you enjoy sitting down with a cup of tea, or your knitting, or whatever it is that you do while you watch. And I will see you all in 2 weeks. Have a good one. Happy knitting. Get in touch. Ask me questions, because I'm going to go create that thread. And again, to everybody in the US, happy Labor Day weekend. I will see you next time. Hopefully in 2 weeks, but if life gets in the way, I will post and let you all know. I'll try to post on Ravelry and Instagram if I can't podcast. I think that is a good way to get as many people as possible to be aware that I'm unable to podcast. So that's the plan, but hopefully there is no need for that plan, and I can podcast. So yes, have a good one. Happy knitting, happy reading, and I will see you next time. Bye.